Here we go, guys. I call to order the City Council meeting, May 19th, 2022, 501 Main Street, 5:30 PM. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Crenshaw,
Here.
Altaid,
Here.
Garcia,
Here.
Wynn,
Here.
Hellenthal, Andrews, Marsden,
Here.
Bryant,
Here.
Greenwald,
Here.
7 present, 2 absent.
Mayor's correspondence. The farmer's market opens this week, Saturday, 8 o'clock to 11:30 at the River City Mall. John Norwood, Democratic candidate for Secretary of Agriculture, will be at the Lost Canvas at 719 Main from 1 to 5 on Saturday. There's a block party at Getwell's at 1100 Main. Josephus is playing at 6:30. William Whitmore is at 9 p.m. Rowdy Downs is at 11 p.m. This is on the 21st, and this is a ticketed event. Jerry Lawson, who has been with the Keokuk Airport for 50 years, is retiring, and I would like to send, with the commission, and I would like to send him out a thank you very much. He, in his resignation from it, he said that the Keokuk Airport has been a part and a huge part of his life for 50 years. I think we can all agree that we're going to lose a lot of wisdom and knowledge, and we need to be grateful, and he'll be greatly missed. Then on Sunday, we have Carry the Load Relay coming through Keokuk. This is an organization that seeks to promote Memorial Day awareness, and the group will gather at the riverfront at 1 o'clock, and they will walk to our national cemetery. So if you can join that, that's a great thing. And of course, we need to eat, drink, shop, listen, read the paper, go to the library, do everything local. We see great things for Keokuk. Citizens' request. Item number 6, consent agenda. Minutes of the council workshop and regular city council meeting of May 5th, 2022. Cash receipts and treasurer's report for April 2022. Third quarter financials. Resolution approving ownership updates for Casey's Marketing Company liquor license. Resolution approving a liquor license for Lucky's Irish Pub and Grub, back alley band off the premises, 528 Blondo, effective May 27th through May 28th, 2022. Class C liquor license with outdoor service and Sunday sales. Resolution approving the liquor license for the Keokuk Yacht Club, 2029 River Road, effective June 8th, 2022. Class C liquor license with outdoor service and Sunday sales. Resolution approving ownership updates for Casey's Marketing Company for liquor licenses. Special events permit for Lucky's Irish Pub and Grub, 528 Main Street, back alley band finale, Friday, May 27th, 2022, 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Motion to pay bills and transfers listed in registers number 5271 through 5273. Do I have a motion to the agenda, including the consent motion?
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item number 7, motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance amending section 9.28.040 dealing with the parking regulations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Requested the corner of 20th and Fulton Streets be made no parking. This is a help during drop-off and pickup times. No parking would be restricted from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. And there's a graphic showing where that's at.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, you need a roll call. It's an ordinance.
Oh, that's right, I got a roll call. Okay.
Crenshaw,
Aye.
Alteid,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Wynn, Marsden,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Greenwald,
Aye.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Do I have a motion to waive the third reading of this ordinance?
I so moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Crenshaw, Alteid,
Aye.
Garcia,
No.
Wynn,
Aye.
Marsden,
No.
Bryant,
Aye.
Greenwald,
Aye.
Motion carries.
No, that did not carry. That failed. The 2 absentees count as no's.
We got 2 absent, don't we?
Okay.
So motion has failed. No discussion, right? Okay. Item number 8, consider resolution allocating hotel motel funds for the Big Dam Street Festival. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
During the budget request process, the organizers of Big Dam Street Festival did not request funding as they had not secured a carnival for the event. They did not want to request the funds while not having a carnival and possibly take away funds from another organization. Since that time, the organizers have collaborated with Nauvoo Grape Festival to secure a carnival for the Big Dam Street Festival. As such, the organizers are now requesting $5,000 in assistance. The City Council has provided assistance in the past and allocated funds for 2020 that were returned to the city due to a smaller event as a result of COVID restrictions. In the past, council has allocated discretionary funds for requests outside of the budget process from hotel motel tax. But due to the reduction in hotel motel tax revenues, the discretionary fund has not been allocated for the upcoming fiscal year. Should the council grant the request, the bottom line for the general fund would be reduced by the allocated amount.
Where would the funds be technically coming from? Which source?
The source would be hotel motel, but it comes out of the general fund.
Just for clarification, in past years, we've allocated so much of that hotel motel tax for these uses. But for this year, since we didn't know exactly what some of the long-lasting impacts of COVID were going to be, we didn't grant any of those and we just rolled it into the general fund for potential requests.
Correct.
Is the total 5,000, so we would be paying for the whole total, or is the total actually higher and they're paying for a portion and we're just helping pay for 5,000?
I'm not sure on that. What I will tell you is that I'm assuming that 5,000 would be more or it would be less than what the actual amount is, but I'm not exactly sure on that. When we've granted in the past to help them, they've always had a carnival. But this year, we didn't get an expense report from them or anything because they returned the 2022 funds and they weren't requesting any funds for this year.
Okay.
Cole, this is a question that doesn't have to do specifically with this, but with this carnival being able to obtain for the Nauvoo Grape Festival, is there a possibility that that carnival could be obtained for the 4th of July celebration since we haven't been able to locate one?
That's a question I can't answer either.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Item number 9, consider resolution appointing UMB Bank NA of West Des Moines, Iowa, to serve as paying agent, note registrar, and transfer agent, approving the paying agent and note registrar and transfer agent agreement and authorizing the execution of the agreement, general obligation capital loan notes for the wastewater treatment plan press project. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second. We'll give Roger the motion. I'll take the second.
Any discussion?
So this all relates to the issuance for the press project at the wastewater treatment plant. In discussing with Councilmember Greenwald this morning on the radio, or before we went on the radio, it seems like a lot of different things coming up, but our bonding attorney says they're all necessary in order to move forward.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 9B, consider resolution approving and authorizing a form of loan agreement and authorizing and providing for the issuance of $1,765,000 general obligation capital loan notes, Series 2022, and levying a tax to pay said notes, approval of the tax exemption certificate, and continuing disclosure certificate. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, oops,
Well,
discussion.
Why, I do want to note that while it says that there would be a tax levied, that's because these are technically general obligation notes, which are generally paid for through property tax. However, they're sold as alternate revenue, which means that we pay for them through sewer fees, and that has been budgeted for the upcoming year.
Nobody? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Item number 10, consider resolution approving CSO long-term control plan. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
At the September 16, 2021 City Council meeting, the council voted to approve the concept of a long-term CSO plan as presented by Askew Scientific. By approving the concept, legal counsel was able to submit a letter to US EPA indicating our intent to develop the plan. Askew Scientific will build a sampling and monitoring schedule at key locations to analyze flows and strengths of the waste stream. By doing so, we can then develop a retention plan that will meet the standards of the consent order. The plan will be an alternative to the Rand Park Tunnel and other storm sewer work on the north side of the city. Retention will be at a fraction of the cost of the current plan. Askew Scientific has the experience and knowledge to collect and organize data in a manner that meets EPA standards. Additionally, Askew will develop a plan for testing and recording of flows to ensure future compliance with EPA standards.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 11, motion to set May 25th, 2022 at 6:00 PM for a goal-making session in the city council chambers. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 12, motion to appoint councilperson Dan Nguyen to the Architectural Review Committee and Linda Marson as a liaison between the organization and the council. Motion to approve?
So moved.
So this appoints Councilmember Nguyen to the Architectural Review Committee because it's necessary to have a council member act as liaison to that committee. And then Member Marsden will act as a liaison to the Keokuk Main Street Organization.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Item number 13, boards and commissions.
So we have one final notification that is on the Civil Service Commission, Leanne Schaefer-Smith, with term to expire 4/1/2028. We have several first notifications, as you see there, and a second notification. And then we have 3 resignations, Airport Commission, Jerry Lawson, Airport Zoning Commission, John Monder, and Rand Park Pavilion Commission, Richard West. You can do an omnibus motion to accept the resignations and do the appointment to the Civil Service Commission.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Item number 14, council liaison reports.
I do have one. So for Main Street Keokuk, the very first Friday that they had, which was the theme was Ladies Night Out, went really, really well. It was extremely successful. So they're going to do it again, and they're going to do Rainbow Road Art Walk for their next one, which is June 3rd. Their next summer fun and fundraiser will be coming up July 9th, but tickets go on sale next week. So that's their big fundraiser, that's summer fun. And then the Cultural and Entertainment District is going to be hosting Back Alley Band Fest, which will be next Friday, May 27th. There's 19 bands in 15 residential and 4 commercial venues. And then currently, I think she's on her way back now, our director, Kira, has been representing Keokuk as part of the Iowa delegation at the Main Street America's National Conference this week. She's going to bring back new strategies for us, which is really great and exciting to hear. She's really excited, particularly about one that's about updating downtown building inventory. That's eventually going to become public facade and interactive document that could go onto their website and then hopefully onto our website. It would also include historic and current photos, narratives, incentives, all available for further and redevelopment. So she's extremely excited about the knowledge she's learning down there. Like I said, she was there this week and she'll be coming back.
Anybody else? Okay, item 15, staff reports.
Anybody?
I just wanted to report that the pool is full of water. Everything's moving along fairly smoothly on it. Few plumbing issues like you have every year, but other than that, it's going real good. And ITC is wrapping up with their pole upgrade project on Messenger Road in Hazelhurst. I met with 2 of their representatives a couple days ago. We had videoed the road before they started the project, and we reviewed that video, walked the entire roadway. There is some damage that's along the edge of the road in several spots. They're going to contact an out-of-town paving contractor to come in and take care of that. Once that's done, then we'll, go back and look over. But I want to say that ITC has been very good to work with on this project. And although he had to go back and talk to his superiors, there didn't seem to be any issues in the points that we had said needed repaired. So the road won't be a new road, but we'll at least get fixed what was damaged by the contractor. So.
Robert, for those noted places of road repair, was there any on Hazelhurst that showed up on that?
Hazelhurst is where all the damage is. That
Okay.
Messenger Road didn't have any damage. There is some other spots in the Hazelhurst that was not in the best of shape before this. And so once they get their part done, then we'll try to go in there and get those patched up. And then look at, I'd like to chip seal that road later this year, if at all possible. We'll see. I won't promise that, but that's kind of my goal. Once they get their work done, we'll have to let that new asphalt set a little bit to the oil kind of settles down in it before you can put chip seal over. But yeah, all the damage is on Hazelhurst.
Okay.
Robert, I haven't been down to the riverfront for a while. Is City Docks going in? That not yet?
Water's still too high.
That's what
It's subsiding now, and so hopefully if it gets, like I said, around 7 foot or lower is where we're wanting to go. And, even if it was to hit 7 foot, but if we was to look at the long term, a week or 2 out, you don't look like it's going to come back up, we would still hold off. Our goal is to have those put in as soon as possible and have them in by Memorial Weekend. But right now, I think the last time I looked, the river was at 9 foot, I think, or something along those lines. So.
I'm trying to schedule a code revision meeting. I got responses from a couple of the members, so Thursday, 26th at 8 a.m., and we're going to be discussing vacant building registration. Homeless shelter ordinance will be on the City Planning Commission next Monday at 4:15. That will then come to the council for discussion at hopefully their next workshop. Casey attended a nuisance workshop in Ames here this week. I think she picked up some good information for us. And she's working very hard on getting notices out for grass. So if you see any tall grass, you make sure you give her a call just to see if she's noticed it, but she's working very diligently to try to get those taken care of.
We just wrapped up the last of our press auditions and searching for a new press, and it went really well. All three of them did. It's going to be a tough decision, but we're going to make have Stanley do a matrix to help us decide and put all the pros and cons for each one. So it's going well.
First of all, everyone has in front of you a goal-setting session questionnaire. Please make sure that you fill out both sides and bring that with you next week. That'll be helpful to have that ahead of time, filled out ahead of time, and move the process along. Update on our ongoing problems with the treatment plant and ADM. We had a session with ADM in order to negotiate the consent order at council's direction. The session did not necessarily produce an agreement on anything, though we were going to draw up a revised draft consent order. One of the discussions part of this was the administrative fines that we have levied against ADM. The fines are $264,000. ADM sought relief. We said we wanted to make sure that ADM knew we were serious about them coming into compliance, so we offered them 75% deferment, so they would have to pay 25% of that. The 75% would be deferred so long as they met the benchmarks that were in the consent order. They disagreed even with that. They sent an appeal on the penalties to Tom per our ordinance, but they did not submit a check as required by our ordinance. So right now, the appeal on the fines is denied for not following proper procedure. We were going to have a discussion with our legal counsel and our consultant today on the draft consent order, but we received a letter from IDNR stating that we are going to be issued an additional significant non-compliance notice of violation, and that because we have violated 3 out of 4 quarters, and it appears that we're probably going to violate the 4th quarter, they are turning this over to legal services within the IDNR, which means that we will be levied a fine. We're assuming $10,000 or less, but we will be placed, we're assuming we're going to be placed under an administrative order of our own, compelling us to correct the situation. We are trying to schedule a meeting with IDNR to discuss what's going to be contained in our administrative order in order to draft what we believe is necessary in order to bring ADM into compliance, allowing us to become into compliance. Just so you know, that all along staff has been indicating that the DNR will only accept so much. The return response has always been, don't worry, we're working on it. DNR will work with you if you work with them. Well, DNR has reached their point where they say it's now time to take more drastic action. And so that is something that we're going to have to look at.
Item number 16, new business. With that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You want a 5-minute break? We'll move right in.
5 minute, we'll start again.
Mike?
I've been, there's enough of a, you know, I feel.
I think you're going to get a little lip. This is it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it myself, but you
Next
know,
person,
they've
yeah.
talked about rotating seats.
You know how many times I've gone like doing it myself?
And then he gets to go about 70 on the cross. Jim Shorts and no coat, no sweatshirt, everybody jumping.
I do keep my own. Medicine. But it's not really personal like that. Yeah.
But that,
Very similar. like 75 during the day. And then like, well, and again, we're not in the peak season. Like when it hits 4 or 5, that would be, it might be enough. I might give it 2 hours just to have my husband. I can give this. That'd be more. Yeah. But yeah, so one goes this way, this way. So like, here's the. It would have been nice if you just did it like on the curb to the bedrooms and then this one. Think about. They're pretty, and they're like, my actors are not.
Trying to get an HVAC. I want to. I don't.
Okay, are we ready to start back up, guys? Council workshop, May 19th, 2022, immediately following the regular meeting. Item number 1, discussion on residency ordinance.
Several council members have requested discussion on the residency ordinance. This stems from the increased difficulty in finding and retaining quality employees in all departments. Informal discussions between department heads and council members have broached the subject of increasing the distance outside of city limits employees are allowed to live and lifting the restriction on living in Iowa. This issue is certainly not unique to Keokuk. Over the last few years, the subject has been a topic of discussion on my administrator manager's listserv. Many communities are relaxing their requirements, especially for police officers, in order to attract and keep employees. While many of the respondents on the email chains still had 10-mile limits for public works, many more had extended limits for police officers. Requirements were both in miles and in time. The standard seemed to be 10 miles for public works and 30 minutes or miles for police department. Fire and office staff were generally not addressed. The limits varied between work facility and city limits. Our requirement is 10 miles from city limits measured how the crow flies. So basically what it is wherever you're at, you draw a straight line from the closest point of city limits, and that equals, if it equals 10 miles or less, you're allowed to be within that area. If the council chooses to modify the ordinance, I would recommend that permitted distance for firefighters remain at 10 miles. This is due to the structure of the department. When all shifts are called in for an emergency, the employees must be able to respond quickly to support the shift on duty. Options to consider: 1, extend the limit for police department only. 2, extend the limit for all employees except for fire department. 3, extend the limit for employees except fire but allow police greater distance. 4, remove the Iowa residency requirement, but limit the distance to 10 miles. Additionally, when floods threaten to close the bridge, essential employees may be required to secure temporary lodging on the Iowa side. 5, remove the Iowa residency requirement and allow employees to live anywhere within Lee, Clark, or Hancock counties with fire personnel limited to 10 miles of city limits. There was also some discussion after this of perhaps not allowing certain public works employees to be outside of the 10-mile or possibly maybe a little bit more to allow them for callbacks, because the sewer department does have callbacks and the street department has callbacks for snowplow.
My request was for police in general. I don't generally want to make any recommendations for fire without talking to Chief Rose.
When I broached the subject at the staff meeting, he was in agreement with the 10-mile limit.
Okay, well, I just
Which
have
is-
not talked to him about that.
What's that?
That's what it is currently. Yeah.
Right.
I would like to see the police department go countywide, still in the state, but just to be in the county solely because you've got agencies within the county that are able to hire people who live in Keokuk or residents of Keokuk because theirs are matching the county.
Chief, would you be able to give us your opinion on the county versus opening anything up to out of state? No, we're pretty unique because we're in the corner here, so.
Right.
And
So, you know me, I've talked to you guys about this before. I prefer that everybody live in the city. That's just my personal preference. And I clearly understand that just as I prefer to live in the city, many other people prefer to live elsewhere. So I get it. And it is something that is very competitive, especially with my department. I'm not familiar with other departments and how their employment searches go. So Councilperson Garcia is absolutely correct that uh, anybody that works for Lee County SO can reside anywhere within the county. Fort Madison had a 20-mile limit, but in an attempt to recruit officers from other agencies, have said that they would waive that. So it's very clear that people within our own county, poaching from other departments, are willing to relax their residency requirements. My personal preference is that if the council does seek something like that, I think, like maybe a 30-minute response time to our department would be adequate. And I think the first discussions that I'm hearing countywide, that would probably cover that anywhere in the county.
Chief, would you address Councilman Greenwald's question of state lines, going over state lines? I mean, I know your preference, but
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to my preference every single time because that's just the way I feel about it. State lines, I really have no opinion on that. I would suspect that because of Illinois' laws related to firearms are very difficult and strict, that could present some problems initially in the transition of having officers residing in Illinois, working in Iowa. So they would have to acquire certain permits and things like that to possess and carry firearms into Illinois. Illinois is the one state that has not relaxed a lot of their laws in regards to carrying firearms. Missouri and Iowa have completely relaxed those laws. So it's not an issue there. That's the only difficulty I see there, Council.
that was going to be my question. If we went across state lines, how that would affect your officers as far as being able to qualify for the rules and regulations of Iowa. And just to be clear, I'm not in favor of going across state lines I think we should keep it in Iowa too, so.
Sure.
Outside of the police department, in my discussions with Robert, it's becoming, I will tell you, it's harder to find employees that have a CDL and to get them trained in CDLs, because there's a new requirement now that they have to take a certain class. That class is $600 some. But go ahead, Robert.
It's 160 hours, so it's approximately 5 weeks long. It's $3,995 to take that. They have to have a driving permit for 14 days, we believe. I've been working with Chief Hinton on this. They'll have to have a driver's permit prior to even taking the training. And we currently have a 90-day probation period for new employees. So this employee would have their probation period up before they could even get the training completed.
We can thank our federal government for
You
that.
betcha.
Because I took my CDL to drive for C-Bus last year, and they told all of us that this was coming because they opened it up to 18-year-old drivers. And so it affected everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know why they just didn't require that for the 18-year-old drivers, but they didn't ask me, so.
They've made it very tough on us. The last two, we had 2 job openings that we just filled not too long ago. And for 2 positions, I had three applicants that had a CDL license.
How do those transfer state to state? Do they not, or do you have to get an Iowa CDL, or if they had an Illinois one, would it, Missouri,
I mean, if you had an Illinois CDL, it would be,
it would transfer?
yeah, you would be, once you have it in one
Okay.
state, if you're a resident of that state, you're legal
Yeah.
to drive in any state.
Okay.
What we are aware of is that there may be potential pools in the adjoining states of CDL drivers. But because of our residency requirement within the state of Iowa, it eliminates that pool.
And those current jobs that we're talking about have the 10-mile radius
Correct.
already. So are these pools that you're mentioning within 10 miles in the other 2 states?
Yes.
That's my wonder as well, is if you could leave even the 10-mile and you open the state.
I just have a problem with that because they're working for the city of Keokuk, but they don't contribute any taxes here for infrastructure. I mean, they might buy their groceries and gas here, but they don't pay any city taxes, but they're going to work for the city of Keokuk. So I personally have a problem with that, reaching out to Illinois or Missouri, because we currently have a lot of people that already do that. Probably, I don't know, 40% of our workforce are from Illinois and Missouri in Keokuk now that don't contribute to our tax base. So that's my opinion on that.
Can I say something? So I'm on several committees and to do with housing. We're really trying to get some housing starts. We're hoping maybe 30 to 40 at some time or another. And if we can't keep our employees and our, workers in our community, we're losing population, we're losing tax base, we're losing. So, I mean, I know it's hard to find employees, but there's got to be a happy medium.
My worry is we don't have housing to give the people. And yeah, so, and I get that, and yeah, and I can appreciate that. I know people personally who have very high paying jobs in our area, but don't live here solely because they can't find a house that fits them or fits what they have going on.
One of the other things that we found when we were researching residency requirements that addresses Pam's concerns are that there are a lot of communities that are resorting to a stipend if you do live in the city. So they will, if any employee resides within the city limits, they'll pay you an annual stipend for that too.
Was a question that I would pose out loud. I don't know the answer, but is the value greater to the city to be able to get the employees we need because we have a larger pool, or is the value greater to the city to make sure they live here so that we can get taxes from our own employees?
Well, one thing that I want to just point out to the council is that we already have a number of employees that don't live within city limits. So they are more likely to participate in the community by living just outside of city limits. But to Councilmember Wynn's point that they aren't contributing to the infrastructure through property taxes, that's the same situation as if they lived out of state as well.
I think it's a way to attract people potentially too. If I can apply for the job, you draw them in with things here. Do they bring their spouse? Do they bring kids? That sort of thing.
I agree. Time's not on our side, really. We have a lot of great things in the works, but how long does it take when we talk about housing and things like that? But, our departments need people soon because they're being pressured from federal government or other things. So we're definitely on a time clock. As far as incentives, I think because I was a former teacher, we were allowed to live wherever and teach in a school district. You didn't have to live where you taught necessarily. And I knew a lot of teachers that didn't live because different reasons, and some people did. I think it's just preference, but it wasn't a restriction set to you by your governing body. So I tend to be a little bit more on that liberal side of like, no, live where you want to live, like your thing kind of idea. But I do understand the struggle of wanting to keep them here. I agree with Councilman Nguyen. Ideally, I want everybody to live here because we know how great Keokuk is. We all are here for a reason. With that being said, I think we could draw them in. As far as incentives go, incentives would come from the general fund if we were to
Well,
give out incentives, monetary.
Depending upon the department, yes. So anything for police, fire, park, cemetery, general administration staff, yes, would come from the general fund.
And again, I'm going to reach back onto my teaching. I was given an incentive for teaching. I taught in a critical needs subject. So when it was hard to find high school science teachers, they gave me an incentive. And I signed a contract with that incentive. And then the next year, the economy broke down in 2009. I was still given my incentive because I signed a contract. And I was like, whoop-de-doo. But that's when the economy is doing good. And that's when my school district was doing good. So I struggle in the sense here that we are in a little bit of a financial crisis in our general fund, and then we're thinking about giving incentives. I do think incentives is a great idea. I don't want to like wash it off the table. It just is more like the timing of it I struggle with because of it. I don't want to like say we're never going to do it. I just think it's one of those things that happen when things are going great and good. You offer it and you try to get them in. But when things are not going as well financially in that fund, I don't necessarily agree, at least with a monetary incentive. I do want them to live here, and I want to think of other ways. Maybe even fundraising might be something I'd be willing. I don't know if that's something the fire, like our departments do, our police and fire or our public safety, if they do fundraising like that, to where we could offer some kind of event, and then that money strictly goes to offering incentives for those people we hire. I'm into that idea. But as far as it coming straight out of the general fund currently into like next fiscal year or potentially, I'm gonna really struggle with that.
I'd like to look into if you're fully staffed, does that save money in what you've been paying in overtime or things like that? Would that equal out to an incentive? I know what you mean with money. I know my house personally, I don't want a pizza party. I want money. So if the whatever the incentive is, I want it to be that it's helping my family. Sorry to put that way. So if we could look into if we are fully staffed, is that less overtime? Does that equate the dollars that we would be missing?
And are these incentives, are these one-time bonuses like a sign-on bonus? Or is this, if we're putting something like this, talking about it with policy, does this then just start applying to everybody that's already working for the city that would live within city limits?
And where are
Mr.
we?
Work.
Oh, sorry.
So the sign-on bonuses with law enforcement are very common. They're substantial, but it is more cost-effective than paying for the initial training and certification as a peace officer in the state. So we see on average $8,000 to $10,000 sign-on bonuses for certified officers only. Offered. We've never offered it. I've talked about it for probably 7 years now because that's the industry norm. That is definitely cost effective. The cost of overtime running short-handed would definitely pay for the incentives, and not all incentives have to be a cash amount. I'm like you, I don't think people want a pizza party, but maybe there are other incentives that don't cost you money, whether that's extra time off or, just trying to be creative, thinking of something different. It could be something that simple, maybe, yeah, whatever. I mean, I don't know what it is, but, maybe another week's vacation or something. I don't know what it is, but there are definitely other incentives that are beneficial to employees, families that may not have a dollar amount attached to it when times are tight.
Where are we right now in terms of staffing with as far as the street department and fire and police? I mean, are we struggling with staff right now?
Yeah, the police department is for sure. I'm not sure about your department. We generally run 1 to 2 short all the time. There is difficulty in recruiting. There is, over the last 5 years, applicants struggle to pass the test. The tests haven't changed. They're basic physical agility testing and basic written tests that are mandated by the state. And it's not uncommon to see a 50% failure rate on each.
Where are you at as far as attrition? Are you looking at retirement coming up? And
We have, I think, 2 potential retirements, but no real discussion of it. One is an individual that could have retired whenever, but continues to work. So it's difficult to say, but well, we always plan on about 1 a year. And we will see probably in the next 2 years a big gap in retirements. So we have 3 or 4 officers that have 30+ years experience, and then the next level is at 17 years. So once we hit that, we won't see as many retirements. But
I have 2 retirements for sure this year, and most likely a third also that will be gone by the end of the year. But the CDL issue is something that we're trying to work on too. So, I mean, we have a few issues there, you know, what we want to do, and that'll be something I'll be bringing to the council here for too long when we come up with some kind of a idea on what we want to do on that. But yes, I positively have 2 that's put in for their retirement. One of them leaves in July.
Robert, how are your staffing levels? Do you have openings right now that you
No,
can't fill?
No, we're full. We're down to 10 prison helpers that we've had, and I do not see that coming at all this year. I was just told yesterday that almost certain that we won't have anything this year, and they don't know if it's ever going to come back. So, but as far as my full-time employees, yes, we're at full staff right now. But July 14th, I'll be down 1.
Your full staff, are you adequately staffed?
I wouldn't call it adequate staff, no. But we are full staffed.
Any indication? Any indication why they will not do the prisoner program anymore? Have you had any conversation on that?
When I've talked with them, it's been the COVID is what they've used. They still have a COVID restriction. I think there's more to it than that, but that's just a personal opinion. I won't really elaborate on that because I don't have the facts on that, no. And they could say next week, you know, that they're going to let us have them back, but I keep having conversations and we're not getting anywhere.
Cole, on the CDL requirements and the new, typically a lot of places reimburse for the CDL license. Is that something that the city offers now, or will we?
Well, I think that the reimbursement is
Just
was
for the
based
license.
on basically just providing them a vehicle to test in and the fees for the actual purchase of the license. With
Probably typically $50 is what, $35 or $50, depending on how many endorsements they have on their license.
right.
And then you're looking at 5 weeks of them not being able to work while they're at school.
Not only are you going to pay the $39.95, you're going to pay them 40 hours a week for 5 weeks.
Right.
Somehow we got to take living in Keokuk as a positive and not a negative.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't know what all we got to do that. I do know housing is one. Living in the past, those factories down there, people live within a block of those factories and walk to work. Well, now When I left Roquette, we had hourly workers from Mediapolis, Iowa, Quincy, La Harpe, Illinois, Wyconda, Memphis, Missouri, that drove every day up here. So,
I think it's not uncommon in today's society. I know many people who one spouse works here, the other spouse works in Iowa City, and they're living in Mount Pleasant or Burlington. It's just not uncommon to have a commute anymore.
I know a lot of people my age and younger that they choose the city they want to, and then they go search for a job there. Like my own cousins did the same thing. They just wanted to live in Denver. No job, just up and left. Scares me to death. I don't want a job, but they do this, and we kind of need to kind of accommodate. I do think we're in a really great region to right now. A lot of people want to kind of like a hobby farm, have a goat, have some chickens, have that kind of stuff. Where we live in a great area for that mentality and for that lifestyle. I do think opening it up past 10 miles, because it's hard to find something like that, in city limits, and then, within the 10 miles, I don't know how much of that comes open. Again, not my thing. I live in the city, so I love that. But again, opening that up so that others have the opportunity to live a happy life and still work and have a happy career within our city, I think is a good idea. One thing I do want to bring up is I am hesitant to do something specifically for police and not do it for fire. Whatever we do for police, I would like to try to do it for fire too, to keep them same. If Chief Rose comes and says no, I'd be willing to change. But for right now, I do like having everybody kind of on equal. I do see that living in Iowa, like what Chief Hinton said, that the different laws, I understand what's going on there. But maybe I get a little weird on the sense that we could let public works go over state lines, but then public safety needs to stay in Lee County or whatever the potential is there. I kind of wish it was a little bit more. Everybody has the same thing. I'm okay to go specific if we have to, but I would like all of our department heads leads on that.
I think fire has a different requirement because of burn time.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, unfortunately for them, I do think that maybe the state line thing is fine, but it probably does need to be a 10-mile response time. I would like to hear from Chief Rose, but I know that it's got to be quicker than 30 minutes.
I see.
Right. And as I said at the staff meeting, he did indicate that the 10-mile was something that was desired.
Okay.
Across state lines or
Well,
it is.
it didn't matter. Just
10.
It had to be that response time so that he could get as many firefighters to the emergency as quick as possible. So again, if you wanted to do something for firefighters, you could make it so that firefighters could live in Illinois or Missouri, but they had to be within 10 miles.
I do hope that this would be a push for us and the community to work toward more and better housing, more recreational activities, to keep drawing people, whether they work for the city or not, to Keokuk.
My personal opinion would be, I think it's more valuable to the city to have the best possible employee than if they reside within the city limits or not, when it makes sense. So such as the discussion with fire, yes, they need that response time, absolutely. So based on what we've talked about today, I would be in favor of considering Chief's request, or I guess what Councilman Rosalind said, for Lee County for police, and then for other departments to eliminate the state boundary but retain the 10-mile radius.
Have we thought about, maybe a question for the chief, recruiting, not recruiting, but like the military goes to the high school and has a work session or a program where you talk to the graduating class to see if they might be interested in a job in law enforcement. And, why can't we do that as a city?
We do that. They have career fairs every year, and we've attended every one of them. We currently we do have some difficulty in the age of hiring because of possessing firearms. So we're currently working with a 20-year-old intern that's from our community that went away to community college for a criminal justice degree. But again, we have to wait till that person's 21 for hire. So we attend, we have a recruitment team, we attend colleges, career days, things like that. We are constantly reaching out to other people to try to get in, and we're still two people short, you know. So we do focus a lot on that, and we've had some success with it, but it is difficult. We just tested about a month ago, and nobody passed the testing. So we scheduled it again, nobody passed it. We've allowed, and we're working with the candidates that have applied to make sure they understand what they have to do to accomplish that, and we'll test again. I think May 25th is our deadline for applications, if I'm going off the top of my head here. So we're constantly trying. It's just a struggle.
So you do like workshops for them to, like study group kind of thing for that?
If they're struggling with the written exam, that's what we're prepping for. And if they're struggling with the physical agility, even the academy gives you like fitness plans that you can follow to get in shape to pass the test. It's just, we see a lot of people that think you can show up the day of testing and be able to make it all, and it's a little bit more than that.
So, and this is probably a political statement, but they can be, they have to be 21 to carry a firearm and be a police officer in the state of Iowa, correct?
No, they can be younger, but you run into some difficulties with possessing the firearm outside of your place of scope of employment. So a lot of agencies will not hire anyone until they're the age of 21. There are some departments that will hire them younger than that, but there is, it puts you in a tight spot sometimes based on where they can possess the firearm.
Because I was just going to say, it says if they couldn't carry a sidearm, maybe a police officer or 21, but could join the military at age 18 and be issued an automatic rifle.
Right. And even in the military, they don't allow soldiers to possess the firearms while they're living on base, you know.
Mhm.
So, is there any direction beyond what Councilmember Greenwald has given? Because based upon that, we could draft up for further discussion how we would proceed with this through either a change, well, there'd have to be a change in the ordinance. But what we could do is to make it flexible, so if we ever wanted to make changes, is we say we could set the residency requirement by resolution.
You're saying per department or?
Yeah, so what it is it simplifies the ordinance in that it's the council sets the residency requirement by resolution, and then, so what you then come back and do is then it's much easier to say this department this, and this department this, and this department this, versus having to put all that into the ordinance.
Yeah.
Because then if you're finding out that you're having difficulty in recruiting somebody with a CDL, you can come back and you can make one resolution instead of having to go through the whole ordinance process and changing that all again.
Or any other department heads wanting further than 10 miles? No,
No, I don't, well,
looked like you were thinking.
the one that's going to, the departments that are most affected by this are those in public works, police, and fire.
Yeah, that's why I know that opening up the state, but not further than that.
But then with the CDL problem, you've got that issue in public works. So if that 10-mile radius is in effect for you, that's gonna, but we're opening it up to all 3 states. Is that correct?
That was the recommendation from Councilmember Greenwald.
Yeah, and I suppose simplify the way I said it, those that currently are allowed outside of city limits at 10 miles, those are the ones that I would look to get rid of the state line boundary.
And police department would be allowed anywhere, would have to reside anywhere within Lee County. They couldn't go across state lines.
And is there anywhere in Lee County that does not fall under a 30-minute response time?
There's a couple points I think that would push. However, I guess it depends on how fast you drive and the actual location of your house.
Well, part of the rationale for allowing police department to be further out is that there's always somebody on duty, and that, especially in our case, because it seems like there always happens to be a deputy sheriff somewhere, and I think we have at least one, if not two, that live in town. So there's the potential for backup already being there.
I think even if you were on call, it doesn't mean that you'd be there within 30 minutes. If you aren't at your house, if you live in Keokuk, you may not be home when they're calling you.
Could you, for the CDL people, the people that don't have a CDL, but you find a good applicant for one of your programs, could the city work up some type of agreement to pay for the CDL as an incentive, but if it's $3,000, when they earn the money, $10 comes out of a paycheck or $20 comes out of their paycheck until the CDL is paid for after they've been hired, and that money goes into a fund, and then the next person that's hired, there's the money for the CDL to offer, you'll be a great candidate, but you need to get your CDL.
Well,
And if they don't get, if something would happen that they would not pass or something like that, there would be an agreement that they had to pay that money back or something like that.
what I would do is, instead of doing something like that, is I would do something similar to what the police department does when they hire the officer, is that there's an agreement where if the officer leaves in a certain amount of time, they reimburse their training costs.
Yeah.
But I also,
So I would do something similar to that, with it being like a 3-year agreement that, after 3 years, then you don't have to worry about paying it back. But during that time, there would be a gradual reduction until you reach that 0 point.
I think we also need to extend the probation period for that employee if they was going to take the training, because we don't want to hire somebody that make it through the 90-day period and then they not get the CDL.
Right.
That becomes an issue if we have an employee that can't operate a CDL vehicle.
So that would be something, because I believe it's part of our contract of what the probationary period is. So we would have to have an MOU with the union, and then put it into the next contract that basically says that if you're hired, what I would suggest is if you're hired with a CDL, your probationary period is 90 days. If you're hired without, it's 180 days, and you have to get that CDL.
Because
Robert,
we currently have it now. If you was to lose your CDL license due to an OWI or some kind of negligence on your part, I believe that you'd be terminated. Is that correct?
Well, I believe what it is if the OWI or under the influence happens to be while on city duty, that's a termination. If it's off duty, I believe there's a remediation program that allows them to keep their job, provided that they do everything necessary in order to get the CDL back within a certain amount of time. Second offense would be termination.
Okay.
It is a 6-month suspension automatically though on a first, so I don't know that you'd be able to do your job duties if you don't have a driver's license at all.
Well, I've run into this in other places, and you make accommodations. What it is most cities and in most contracts, there's a propensity to forgive the first one through time, right? And then meeting certain things. So If they were, in my case, in other cities, it was failure of a mandatory drug test. So the CDL was suspended for 6 months. We required them to do additional random testing for a full year. They couldn't have another violation while at work or off work. And it just so happened that he ended up with an OWI the second time and he was fired. But there's that propensity to give them that chance.
I was going to say, Robert, when I went to the EPA workshop for the brownfield, there was a person on that team, on the EPA team, that talked about job training for our youth, I believe. And one of those things that she spoke on was CDLs. There were lots of other things that literally came right into like, yeah, we need that asbestos removal, all sorts of things. Getting our youth to seek those things and come back. So I do encourage, if we are to see the EPA again, and hopefully I heard she might be coming back. That was with KDC, right? That we did that, Mayor? The KEDC, was that with the EPA that we went on? Shelley would probably be a great person to get in contact with if that, I think her name was Alma, if she comes back to see about those CDLs, that'd be something that I think you'd be interested in to learning about.
SCC does offer some of those for free too, depending on what their income level is. That's on their CN, different classes, but they're on there as long as you can pass the drug test.
That's what Chief Hinton's brought up too. If we was to hire somebody, if we set this policy up, have the employee get the training, pay for it. So if there is money out there available to help them, let them do it, and then we would reimburse whatever that wasn't covered by the financial aid.
I
So
think it's called like the fast business or something like that. They just send them out and they've got a whole section, and CDL was in there for free.
and the plus side of that, if the employee paid for it and they don't pass it,
Yeah.
we're not out.
That's right.
I mean, that's going to be the incentive for them to pass and get their license.
Any more discussion? Anything else, everybody? Okay, then I think we can adjourn. We made it.